that? What am I thinking? Why are they looking at me? What am I gonna do now? What am I doing? Where did I go? Why did I do that? What happened? What am I doing?
Day2Day Podcast. How you doing? I'm your host, Michael Butterfield. Day2Day Podcast is a podcast regarding your depression. I am very excited today because I have a special friend. It's my first female interview. Her name is Cyndi Melgoza. Cyndi, how you doing today?
Hi, doing great.
Cyndi, when did your depression start?
I can honestly say that I feel like I've always battled with it since a young age. But actually where I've been able to acknowledge it and call it for what it is, actually last year is when I actually realized and was able to put like a name to the feelings.
What were you feeling at this time?
What wasn't I feeling at this time? It was a difficult time. I had just lost my job as a manager with Bank of America. There was some changes that happened with the company, so I was demoted essentially. My parents were going through divorce, so my family was falling apart, is what it felt like.
But that sounds like individual reasons, though, for your family falling apart. Like, so you personally was just going through a lot of things, and then on top of that, your family. You felt like your family was falling apart.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was a lot of things stacking on top of one another that really made me take that step back and say, I'm feeling dark, I'm feeling like there's a cloud over my head, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. And I finally took that step, went into therapy. And after a few sessions talking to my therapist, she was like, you have depression, on top of that, anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder as well. So that's really when it was like, all right, all these feelings that I'm feeling, this is the reason why.
And just for everybody to know, how old are you?
I am 32.
32. Okay, so you going through that, how were you dealing with it? Like, what were your ongoing day-to-day life experiences going through depression? Like, how did you feel?
Emotionally, I was feeling, there was different days. I mean, honestly, every day was a different sense of emotion. There was some days where I was cool, where I was just coasting and felt fine. Other days where I really felt a heavy burden on my shoulders.
Do you know what triggered those heavy burdens? Was it like a reason? Or?
Absolutely. I am a survivor of rape.
Okay.
It is something that I have, for a long time, I pushed back, didn't really deal with it. My sense of, or my way of dealing with it was through substance abuse.
Okay.
Ever since I can remember, I started smoking marijuana when I was in 7th grade. So I was 12 going on 13 years old. Ever since then, there really wasn't a long time period in my life where I was sober. It was a way of medicating. It was a way of not feeling it. It was a way of pushing back all these emotions that came with it.
What year was the year of rape?
I was really young. I was probably around 7 or 8 years old.
Oh, wow.
And it happened again when I was 16.
So it happened twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you handling that, the conversation has been limited to obviously who you telling. You dealing with it. You used other things besides weed, alcohol, or anything else, or?
I used marijuana. Has always been the one substance that has been the heaviest, in addition to alcohol. But I've also would do shrooms. I've done ecstasy heavily in my high school years, and then into adulthood, I even started dabbling in cocaine. So really, that was the turning point for me. I had always viewed cocaine as really like ugly, that's dirty. I would never do something like that. Then when I take a step back and I'm now using this and I'm searching for it, I'm actually purchasing it. It's not something that I stumble upon.
Got it.
That's when I was really like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
So that was a turning point for me, when I'm doing this with my best friends and I'm just kind of like, what the fuck? Like, this isn't you.
So, but at this particular one time, it made you happy?
I wouldn't even say it would make me happy. It was just another form of numbing and not feeling the emotions and not dealing, because that's essentially what my substance abuse, because that's really how I can see it now. I'm an addict, you know, and that's really what it was for me, was a way of escaping and not feeling the emotions and not dealing with the emotions that I was feeling. It was my escape. But at the end of the day, you wake up in the morning, you're sober, and that shit's still there.
Yeah,
it's still weighing heavily on you.
It's in the back of your head. Yeah,
always.
It's definitely in the back of your head.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously, substance abuse been a issue over the last few years. Is there anything else particularly that helped maximize your depression, or?
I think that it was, like I said, I've never truly dealt with my rape. When I finally started thinking about it and really started trying to process it, I feel like that kind of elevated it a little bit. It's always been something that I've just kind of pushed to the back of my head, never thought about, and just kind of kept moving. But that only exemplifies it. And it just got to a point where I was like, I want to take control of my life, and I want to take control of me and not let that drive me. And
by all means, excuse my ignorance, because I don't know how to deal with the situation with rape. So, you said 7 and 10?
No, and again, it's something that I've pushed to the back of my head for so long that to clearly identify like an exact age when it started and stopped during my younger age is kind of difficult. But I would say I was about 7 or 8 years old when it first happened. And then again when I was 16, 17.
Was this, obviously you don't have to identify the person or whatever the case may be, but was this someone that you trusted, like a family member? Because the kids always trust someone close, you know what I mean?
Yeah, when I was younger, it was a cousin.
Okay.
It was a cousin, and then when I was a teenager, it was a friend.
Wow. And then you put it to the back burner of your head, and you still deal with it today. You still see these people, I would assume.
No, I haven't seen my cousin. He's a piece of shit, in and out of jail. I haven't seen him in years. Okay. I cannot even have last memory of when that happened. A friend lives in another country, so no, it's not somebody that I've ever seen after that.
Not that it's great
but it definitely makes it, I would say it's a little relief to not have to worry about running into this person. I did have a close run-in to the cousin, and that's a huge trigger. I couldn't see his father without being triggered of that memory. And when I started seeing that, that's when it was really a moment for me to reflect, like, I need to deal with this shit. I can't continue to let it hold that power over me, because that's really what I felt like it was. So me seeking help and really trying to overcome my battle with that was a way of me taking my power back and not giving it that power.
Do you feel depression is just a lack of power?
I think it can be, because depending on what is kind of fueling your depression is kind of you not taking control of a situation. For me, like I said, what really finally pushed me to the point of I want to get help and I want to deal with this was everything that I felt was piling on top of me. And I really got to that point of not really being able to identify who I was. This job had been my identity for so long, and that getting taken away from me, in addition to the issues with my family and everything else, was me kind of being, where the hell am I?
You felt like a lack of identity?
Absolutely.
Or?
Absolutely.
How long, was that progressing in your head?
Honestly, it was about 3 or 4 months of dealing with the job thing, because I put everything into that job, into this career, and that's really what I thought. Yeah, that's really what I thought that it was. It was going to be exactly, it's corporate America. I really thought that was going to be the end all be all for my career path. So when that was derailed, I really was like, what the hell do I do from here? What do I have without that job? But again, that comes into a whole nother conversation about other things that attribute to that. It's that chasing after that the material stuff really is what it was as well, you know, versus the job didn't make me happy. I hated the fucking job, but it's what the job provided.
Yeah, it was all the extracurricular friends. You feel like you're friends. You probably, I don't know when you quit that job or lost that job, but you probably still don't talk to them. You talk to a few, like a handful.
I talked to a handful, but it's also because of the fact that I stopped partying and stopped drinking and stopped doing all
and
that
you
extra
lose those
shit
people
that are enabling you.
You
because
literally have drinking friends,
absolutely.
right? Yeah, and you literally have drug friends in a sense. But when you stop doing that, the positive things, when you want to be active, like going to work out, or those motherfuckers are not there, right?
No, they're trying to derail you from that. They're saying, nah, don't go do that. You can do that tomorrow, or what?
Yeah.
Why? Just come and have a beer with us, you know? And then that really was the point when I realized, like, I had to self-analyze and assess the people that I was keeping in my circle.
Got it.
You know,
Got it.
if I looked at it as if I'm trying to make these positive changes for myself and to better myself, you as my friend should be supporting that. You shouldn't be questioning it. You shouldn't be trying to convince me to not do it. You know, because before I left the corporate job, I had started going to therapy already.
Got it.
You know, I hadn't stopped drinking and smoking yet. I was trying to cut back, but the moment that I made that decision, which was, you know, everybody New Year, new me, was when the New Year rolled around. I was like, all right.
Why do people always knock that? I love the New Year, new me. You know what I mean? People always knock that. It's so like, dang, you should know someone that really want to change.
Yeah, and I think it's because the New Year rolls around, you have all these goals and all these things you want to do, and then it falls off after a couple of months, you know?
Yes.
So that's the reason why. Because, I mean, realistically, you can change that type of behavior and the things that you want to start working on the new year at any point. We don't need a new year in order to start doing that type of stuff.
Fair enough.
However, that was really my starting point, was I was going to be starting a new job. And I didn't want to go into this new job with the exact same behaviors I was doing at the previous job. So when I made that decision to stop smoking, stop drinking, you know, my friends were like, all right, one person that I was really close to, he was like, all right, yeah, you've said this before. Like, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
You know, and then 3 months go by and I meet up with them and they're like, oh, let's have a beer. And I'm like, I'm not drinking, bro. Like, I told you this. He's like, what? You're really sticking to it? And it's that shift, you know, it's that shift within me that I had gotten to that point of I've hit this wall. I've done these things so many times, time and time again.
Exactly.
Something needs to give in order for the outcomes to change.
Of course. If you don't change your day-to-day, then nothing is going to change. You know what I mean? If your same behavior is, hey, I'm going to do this and this and this, and you don't change anything, Jesus Christ. Like, what do you expect?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Absolutely.
literally, what do you expect? And that goes, for me, I was depressed for a long time. You know what I mean? Like, until I changed my behaviors, like, what the fuck do you expect?
Yeah.
And I'm talking to myself. You know what I mean? Like, it's literally in your head. You know? So, yeah, of course. So, nonetheless, what have you done to change your behaviors about depression?
God. I feel like it's what haven't I done at this point. It's funny because I have this conversation with my girls on how I made the decision to seek help. You know, it started by going to therapy, and that turned into
How did you seek therapy? Like, what did you do? Did you Google? Did you?
Well, I have. This particular therapist that I have now, I've been with her for a little bit over a year. It's the longest stretch I've ever had with a therapist. I had gone to therapy before, but was very unsuccessful because I wasn't ready to deal with the issues that I was going in there to deal with.
How do you feel going into? You said it's a she, correct? All right. So, how do you feel exercising your demons? You know what I mean? Like, you're talking to someone about your life and how you feel. Like, how did you go and approach that? Like, what were you thinking?
I was...
And I apologize. What made you Google a therapist?
I didn't Google it. It's actually... I was referred to this particular therapist by one of my best friends who had been seeing her for years. I have Kaiser as my medical provider, and for those of you that have Kaiser know that getting in to see a therapist could be month-long process. Months-long process.
Is it really
it's
that
very
long?
difficult to get into it. So I was at a point where I seriously felt a sense of desperation. And I felt like I am at a point where this is what I need to do. If I don't do it now, I'm not going to do it.
How deep were you, like, in regards to your depression before you actually...
It was bad.
And so you obviously told a friend about it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm very blessed in having a strong support system. I have a lot of friends, but I have very few friends that I 100% confide in.
So, you don't have to obviously say what you told her, but what made you take the step to admit that you're depressed?
It's, through conversation with them, through honest conversation, they saw my behaviors and they saw the dangerous behaviors that I was having.
So they called you out? Or
I wouldn't say that they called me out. It's, we hold each other accountable. So yes, in a sense, they did call me out. And through their observations of that, that's where I just started expressing, like, this is how I feel. And to say that I identified it as depression prior to going into the therapist wasn't the case. I just knew the emotions that I was feeling and the behaviors that I was doing. I was drinking every single day. I would go during work, on my lunch break to go drink. It was after work. I was driving and drinking. There was a lot of dangerous situations I was putting myself in that my friends were seeing, and for a long time they didn't tell me anything. But they would have conversations amongst themselves about how they were concerned. So it did definitely come to a point where they were like, yo, this is what we're seeing, like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah.
So
you good? You not? You good?
Exactly. So those conversations, and I mean, the persons that I'm talking about, my sister and a friend that I've known since I literally, like, was born into the friendship. I've known her my entire life. So they know me better than anybody, seeing me on a day-to-day and seeing the behaviors change, seeing my mood high, my mood low. There's things that if you're paying attention, you're going to identify in them. And it was just a question of what's going on, So through that and through what I was feeling, I was like, I'm ready to start seeing a therapist. So my friend recommended her. I started seeing her. After a couple, I want to say maybe like a month of seeing her, that's when finally she gave me a diagnosis. It was very difficult for me to accept it in the beginning because I feel like there's a very strong stigma to depression. A lot of people...
It sounds negative, but it really isn't.
It's not.
No,
it's not.
It's a natural feeling because... just my personal opinion, you compare yourself to other people. Two, you feel like there's times where, like, dang, you feel lost and not important. And you walk in your mental hallways of darkness. It happens. You know what I mean? Like, it naturally happens. There's so many other avenues, too, to talk about it. But I know particularly about me, like, yo, this is normal. You know what I mean? Like, you gotta figure it out. But it happens. Yeah. It happens naturally. So no, I definitely hear you. So you realized last year that you're depressed, and you didn't. Have you noticed any actions prior to that you're depressed, even though that you realized last year, like, even at a young age, were you depressed?
Or, yeah. Looking, taking a step back now and really looking at my behaviors and my moods and things like that, I definitely identify it. And I like to write. I've always liked to write, whether it be like writing a poem or just...
So you have like a diary?
Or journal. I've always had one since... I'm not a 12-year-old girl to call it a diary, but... I've always had it. And I keep all of these journals I've had over the course of my life. So looking back into those things, I even have them from when I was like in middle school, high school. So looking back at that,
So all right, so you looking at that, how is it reading that dialogue?
It's crazy because obviously things change, but at the same time, the emotions don't change. So I'll look at my poems from when I was in 8th, 9th grade, and I'm like, fuck, I was one dark-ass teenager, just things that I write about, and I'm like, damn, like, I was really going through some shit, but not really addressing it and just letting it just fly by. I feel like I looked at it a lot as, I'm an adolescent, I'm going through this stuff, it's normal. So when the first time that I saw a therapist, I was about 17 or 18 years old.
So okay, so this is not your first time seeing a
No,
therapist.
I've seen. This is my fourth therapist that I've seen, but I never went longer than I would say about 3 or 4 months previously.
So how did you not know there was a depression issue or?
Because I never continued going, so it never got to a point where there was an actual diagnosis given. The first time I saw a therapist, it was literally an intake appointment. When I expressed how I was feeling, the therapist was like, which I felt was very dismissive.
Okay.
And this is where there's that fine line of, therapists are great, but they can sometimes either hinder your progress and you actually making changes, or
they
hurt, or help.
Just
you.
care.
Exactly.
That's job.
When I shared with, and it was a male. When I shared with him how I was feeling, he just brushed it off as, "Oh, you're a teenager. You just got out of high school. There's a chemical imbalance. It's normal. This identifies itself between this age and this age. It's normal. Don't even worry about it." Never went back.
So you took it as
it's cool. This is normal. I'm fine.
Got
But again, I went for one intake appointment. I never went in there consistently to share, this is my experience, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm doing. It was just whatever, so I moved on from there. Didn't see another therapist probably for a good 3 or 4 years. I saw her for a bit, and then that just kind of fizzled out. When I moved to San Antonio for a year, I started seeing somebody there because I was having a hard time with the transition while I was out there.
Okay. So you moved to San Antonio when?
I moved out to San Antonio in 2015.
Okay.
2015.
And just so everybody knows, you're from California.
Yeah,
obviously.
born and raised in California. I moved out there essentially because I got a promotion, and that was my reasoning. Deep down, I felt like it was more than just a promotion. It was really trying to run from things. I said, back at that point, I was already drinking more heavily than I had ever drank before. So for me, it was a good change of scenery. It was like, okay, I'm going to remove myself from that and kind of start fresh.
Got it.
But now that I take a look at it, it's kind of like I felt like I was running from whatever shit I was trying to deal with, and that didn't help. If anything, I feel like it kind of exacerbated the issues that I was already feeling, the emotions I was already feeling, because I was by myself.
So you moving from another state, right? You sought out a therapist.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you go into that therapist. Did it feel that it helped, or
it did it for a bit. I started seeing her consistently for about a month or two, and then she got a new job and was going to move out of state.
Jesus Christ.
Yes. And she was going to move out of state. So she's like, I have some referrals. I never followed up on the referrals.
Got it.
So because it just kind of stayed there.
How often did you see her?
I was seeing her once a week.
Once a week. And it felt, obviously there was some kind of comfortability with her, right?
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden she says,
yeah, she's out. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I could have, if I was that serious about seeking the help, I would have followed up and found somebody else like she suggested. But I really, like I said, taking a look at it now, therapy is not going to work for you if you're not ready to work it.
You sought out 4 therapists, correct, right?
Yeah, this is my 4th one.
4th one. So you've been dealing with this. You said you just acknowledged that you're depressed last year, right?
Yeah.
So you've been dealing with this for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not something new.
No.
So how do you realize you were depressed last year instead of why seek therapy? How's that?
Because I felt like my world was crumbling around me.
At what was the earliest age that you seek therapy?
I was 17. I was fresh out of high school, so I was 17 or 18 years old.
Got it. And then what was your questions? You know what I mean? Like why did you feel the necessity? Why was it necessary to get a therapist, to talk to someone? Talk to someone different.
Because I feel like I've always had somebody to talk to, but it's a very different feel when you're talking to somebody that's not your relative, that's not your friend. It's an outsider perspective that isn't going to have any preconceived notions about you and how you are or anything along those lines. Got it. So it's a very it's a non-judgmental, partisan opinion. You know what I mean?
What avenue did you do to follow through? Like, did you ask your parents, or did you
I did it on my own. I did on my own. contacted the mental health department for Kaiser. They set me up with an intake. That was like the first step. You know, when I did at one point before I moved to San Antonio, I did seek out help, and this is the reason why I strayed away from going to a therapist for a very long time. When I called to make the appointment, they were asking me questions, and
like what type of questions?
Like, what is that you're feeling? Why are you trying to come in? You know,
do you feel they're the bland questions?
Oh, absolutely, and and I know that it's their job to try and see, is it an emergency situation? Do we need to fast track this in order to get you into an appointment, whatever the case may be.
It's just like the fucking ER.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So when I expressed to her the emotions that I was feeling and my reasoning for it, which I did mention was the rape, and in that I also mentioned that I had substance abuse issues, she immediately bypassed the rape issue and was like, well, it sounds like you have to deal with your substance abuse issues first, and then everything else will kind of fall in line. So she was extremely dismissive, and that phone call made it worse than helping. I still remember to this day the emotions that I had after that. And, you know, and I called my sister in tears, like, this is what this broad told me, you know, like, I never seeked out therapy after that point, because I was like, as if this is a response that I'm going to get, what the hell am I going to try and seek help for?
Yeah, like, why?
Exactly.
Why? What's the point? It's just weird, because I've known you for a long time. I didn't know that information in regards to the rape, which, damn, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing I could say. There's nothing I could do. I could just give you a simple hug and you're like, what the fuck? Get off me. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. But, yeah, it's just interesting to see that you have attempted to get, or not, I don't want to say get help, because it sounds so...
No, but that's what it is.
It is that, but it's, you just want to have a conversation about it and see what you can learn from it, and that sounds better than get help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, so, I don't know, you reached out 4 times, and have you, like, processed, because it happened twice to you, correct? Have you processed the situation, and you, on your day-to-day basis, is it good for you, or like, is it not good for you? Absolutely not. It's not good for you. But have you processed the situation to realize, like, you know what, that situation happened, I can live on with my life? Absolutely.
I feel like I am in a very different place now at my 32 years of life than I have ever been before. Prior to starting therapy last year, which was November of 2016 when I started seeing my therapist.
Okay.
I felt very ashamed. Ashamed of what happened to me. If, as a survivor of rape, there is a lot of emotions that come from that situation.
Like what? I don't. What are those? Because I don't know what a female thinks.
You feel ashamed. You feel like you're at fault.
Why is it a shame?
For me, because it was never something that I talked about.
Like,
my mom didn't know about this until I was 17 or 18 years old.
I always wonder that, and by all means, I want to make sure if anybody's listening to this, I'm not trying to. I want to make sure I'm sensitive to the situation. By all means, you know what I mean. Like, so I just never because I heard the ashamed verbal a lot of times. Why are you ashamed though? Like what is it? Do you, because as a male, and I know male and females, by the way, but I know you were just a victim to a predator, right? So why feel ashamed because you were a victim to a predator?
Because I think it's just the emotional...
And I'm not trying to be insensitive.
No. I feel like they're very valid questions that we need to have more open dialogue about that type of stuff, you know, to be able to be more sensitive and more understanding of what survivors, because I now consider myself a survivor versus a victim. I looked at myself as a victim for a very, very long time. Mm-hmm. So now being able to work through those emotions and everything that has come along with it, I'm able to look at it as like, I survived this shit. This shit is not going to defeat me. You know, it's not going to continue to hold this power over me that it did for a very, very long time. But to answer your question, there's a shame behind it because just think about the conversations that are going now with this whole Me Too movement. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of ignorant ass people that are like, well, if you wouldn't have been wearing that, you wouldn't be in that situation. Yeah. Well, maybe you were asking for it. Are you sure you said no? There's a lot of victim blaming that goes on. Yeah. So that's where that shame factor can come into. You know, in addition to that, I grew up in a very, very Catholic home. Mm-hmm. I was brought up Catholic. My grandma and my mom are very old school traditional Catholics. Got it. In the Catholic Church, there's a lot of Catholic guilt. You know, sex is bad. You shouldn't. There's so many things that come along with that that fed into that. I was young, you know. I didn't ask for that shit. It happened. But because of all of this information and stuff that is said to me as a young girl, that it's kind of like, well, did I do something to deserve it? Did I do something to cause it? What if I enjoyed it? Which, hello, it's fucking human nature, you know what I mean? Like, there's still going to be a little bit of that.
Yeah, I think it's a natural feeling. You question yourself, and I get it. I get it. I just think, like, dang, there's adults that are ashamed that they got raped. Like, no, you should not feel that way. And obviously, I can't tell you how to feel or anything like that, but no, I just don't feel that you should feel that you should feel ashamed. No, you feel like a victim is key word. You should feel like a victim. Like, hey, this is a crime that I didn't want to happen to me. You know what I mean? And it's understandable. And you got it twice. So, yeah, I could see where you're definitely coming from. You know what I mean? Like, it is what it is. What have you done to try to fix your depression?
I've done a lot. I've first and foremost going to therapy. That definitely helps. I'm huge on reading. I'm a huge reader. So reading self-help books definitely helps. But I also feel like now I'm at a point where self-help books are a little bit
cheesy?
No, not cheesy, because it definitely depends on the types of books that you're reading.
Yeah, it's just like but some self-help books are like great by all means.
Brené Brown.
I read a lot. Right? But then there's some self-help books like, man, come on.
I feel like there's a fine line between self-help books doing good and doing harm. Because now the place that I'm at, where I started reading too much of it, and they can start making you question yourself, and they make you feel more broken than you really are sometimes. I'm doing something wrong, you know? So I have made a conscious decision this year that I'm going to take a step back from that, because there is such a thing as doing too much self-analysis.
Do you have any self-help books that you recommend?
Brené Brown. She is one of my favorite authors. She, like, the first book I read of hers, which was actually recommended to me by the therapist I was seeing in San Antonio, The Gifts of Imperfection. Okay. Solid book. I mean, just the different things that she talks about, and first and foremost, just touches on the fact of we need to get away from the notion of trying to be perfect. You know?
That's the key, though.
That really is what it is, because I feel like that helps feed a lot of the thoughts of depression, because you are starting to think like, I don't measure up to this image and this bar that you set for yourself.
I started this podcast at the beginning of the year, right? One of my goals was, before launching it, was to stay off social media. Social media adds value to my depression. And I didn't realize that. Yeah. After a while, when I'm looking, as I'm scrolling up on the toilet, scrolling up my feed, I'm like, whoa, everybody's happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
You absolutely have your depressive people on there. Like, damn, them motherfuckers is really depressed. Like, oh, okay. But you see how everybody's happy, and you look in your own life, and you're like, dang, I'm not there yet. Or you start comparing. Yep. And once you start comparing yourself to someone else's life, what the fuck? Yeah. You know what I mean? There's nothing you can do. It's just, I don't know. It's really a self-evaluation and understanding who you are is fucking key.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to me, my personal opinion is just fucking key.
Yeah.
So you have definitely tried to fix your depression?
I don't know if I would say fix it, to work through it. Because there's definitely, it has its peaks and valleys. You know, there's days, there could be a long stretch of time where I feel like I am fucking kicking the shit out of it. And I'm like solid, you know, I'm feeling good, getting control of what I like to call my gremlins, you know, and it's that negative self-talk. You know, it's that negative self-talk that it's a very dangerous path to go down to feed into that.
But what makes you feel good, though? Like, what do you do to make yourself feel good? What I
do, I'm a reader. And honestly, my faith, that's like the one thing that has gotten stronger for me, that has helped me through the last year and a half of this process.
How did your faith build, though? Like, so one day you're like, I'm not going to say you don't believe in religion, but how did your faith build stronger to help conquer depression? You understand what I'm saying? Like, so how did it grow to be like, you know what? I'm just going to have confidence that my depression is just going to weaken.
And it's not, I don't even think it comes from having confidence that my depression is going to weaken, because there's been a lot of work that I've had to put into it. So I wouldn't sit here and say, oh, my faith alone is what's gotten me through it, because that's not the case.
Got it.
I have had to take a lot of steps to get to this point. First, key things for me was not drinking and not smoking. That is fundamental for me being at the point where I'm at now.
It's funny, the conversations that the other interviews that I had, a lot of substance abuse has to deal with it.
Yeah, because we think, at least I think, you know, like, I'm going to smoke and I'm going to drink my feelings away. Which, like I said earlier, like, I still wake up in the morning after a long night of drinking
and you gotta be
feeling
who you
like
are.
shit.
Yeah.
And those feelings are still there. If anything, they're exemplified because now I not only feel shitty in my head, but physically feel like shit as well. You know, and then waking up in the morning like, fuck, what did I do last night? Regretting shit. Did I do something stupid? You know, say something stupid. Do I have to apologize to people? It's a terrible feeling. So now I don't have to wake up with those regrets. You know, I wake up
what you did.
Exactly.
You know,
and for the very first time in probably more than 20 years, I am the most clear-headed that I have ever been. And it's a good feeling. So that was the key to me getting to a point where I don't feel like I'm being eaten alive by these negative emotions.
Got it.
But in addition to that, as far as like the faith piece of it, you know, I've always had my faith. Like I said, I grew up Catholic, but I really steered away from Catholicism because I feel like they do a really, and no, not knocking anybody else that is Catholic, but there's a lot of that Catholic guilt, you know, and I just really wasn't getting what I needed out of that. So I've read on Buddhism. I've read on a lot of other spiritual.
You're giving yourself the opportunity to learn other.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And for me, like, I don't know, I just get some type of sense of peace with words of affirmation that come from whether
everything,
it be Buddha, whether
exactly.
it be the Bible, whether it be, you know, other just spiritual people out there.
And it's just words.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just words. Not beliefs. It's like just something like, oh, I didn't even think how they put it was something that would stick in my head for a long time. Yeah.
And me seeing, and I honestly see it more as like words of affirmation.
Got it.
Is really what it is.
Absolutely.
Like there's just certain things that really hit you, and I feel like you and I can read the exact same thing, but what we take away from it is going to be very different, you know. And I think it has a lot to do with where you're at in your path, you know, that it's going to hit you differently.
Yeah. 12 years ago, I would read something and I'd be like, yeah, fuck it. I read it today. I'm like, whoa,
that's life-changing.
Oh my God. You know what I mean? Like, it's moods, you know, and a lot of maturity at the same time.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, no, I agree with you. How often, so I know you said it's somewhat, it's called Day2Day Podcast, by the way, Day2Day Podcast. So, how often does your depression hit you? I know you said sometimes it's like one day, and then are you dealing with it on a daily basis? Are you dealing with it, like, does it hit you once a month, twice a month, once a week, or? No,
I absolutely deal with it on a daily basis.
Daily basis.
It's
so depending on how you sleep.
I don't know if it's necessarily depending on how I sleep. And I say I'm dealing with it on a day-to-day basis because at the end of the day, I am depressed. I have not gotten to a point where I can say I have completely overcame it because I haven't. However, I know about like 6 or 7 months ago, a particular therapy session I had, where I told my therapist, like, I feel so different at this point because I actually feel a sense of peace. I don't feel this. And what I mean by that, previously, I would feel like a dark cloud was just looming over my head.
Okay.
No matter what I did, I could be surrounded by my friends and drinking and partying and
you're happy.
Enjoying
happy
things,
and
I was feeling happy to an extent because I really wasn't fully happy.
Not
I was
fulfilled,
there.
yeah.
No, I didn't feel like I was fully fulfilled by the moment. And in those at those same moments that I'm describing, I could be surrounded by all these people and feel like total shit. Like, what am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here with these people that I'm sitting here doing the same shit that we've been doing for the last 2 years? Like, same bars, same people, same drinks, same music, where it's like, what the hell are you doing with your life? But now I'm at a point where I could sit back and enjoy simple moments, like being with my nephew and seeing this kid smile. That brings me a sense of peace and happiness, So it's really, for me, it's, although there's a challenge every single day, it's really how I'm deal with it. I'm choosing to deal with it now. Where there may be a challenge where previously it would completely tear me down, and in the sense of I'd get caught up in a simple failure.
Got it.
Not getting a promotion would tear me down for weeks.
But
now,
why would that tear you down? Is it just the way that you're built? Is it, you know what I mean?
I think it's my own personal thing. I have very, very high standards for myself, and previously not accomplishing or not meeting those expectations was me feeling like a failure, where now I feel like it's more, okay, it's a setback, it just isn't meant to be. There's something else that's going to come along that's better, or whatever the case may be. But now it's how I've been able to overcome those negative emotions is not going down a rabbit hole of like negative self-fulfilling behaviors, I guess.
Do you realize, and by no means, I want to make sure I'm clear, I'm no therapist, do you realize failure is beautiful?
Oh yeah, now I can.
Yeah.
Now, and see, that's the thing, is that's how my thinking has changed now. And that's how I know that although I am still continuing to battle with it on a day-to-day, I can see the progress. And I see how far I've come because I now see the beauty in the failure. And now I could see it as, all right, shit didn't work out for a reason. It has nothing to do with me. I gave it my all. That just happens to be the outcome of it.
Absolutely.
So and that's where I know that I'm going to be fine and I'm going to overcome this shit because I can see the beauty in that type of stuff now.
So pretty much you have a positive outlook as of today.
Yeah, and I can say that I've always considered myself to be a positive person. However, I feel like there was a lot of times where I was faking the funk and trying to feed into that positivity and not necessarily believing it, where now I can honestly say that I feel it and I honestly believe it now. Like, shit's not always going to stay the same. Nothing's constant. You know what I mean? There is nothing that is ever going to stay completely the same all the time, and there's always has to be a better outcome, and there has to be something better on the other side. Like, and I really feel like believing that and trusting that helps me like get through my day to day.
What advice would you give to anybody that's listening in regards to depression and how to handle it? What would you specifically, like, you're talking to the world right now, right? What would you, not necessarily the world, it's like two people that's listening
hopefully
to this.
the world.
What advice would you give to get through your day to day?
Know that you're not alone. Know that you feeling the feelings you're feeling and having the thoughts you're feeling, you're not the only person out there. I know you and I were having this conversation before we started recording, and you sometimes feel like you're fucking crazy. You're like, why am I thinking like this? Why am I feeling like this? Nobody else is feeling like this. I know that. But that's not true. Having a simple conversation with the people that you trust, that you can legitimately trust and have open dialogue with, is like the start of you trying to overcome that depression piece. Because I know that's what kept me in those dark places for much longer than I needed to be, because there was just a sense of nobody's going to understand. Who am I going to talk to about this? And again, there's just such a stigma to it. I feel like to your point about social media, you know, social media is not real life. That's the shit that you want the world to see, you know? So even I'm guilty of that shit, you know? I put out the positive moments on there when that's not my every single day, you know?
But you also don't want to be the depressed, Danny depressive. You know
absolutely, because you don't want to bring the world down, but call a thing, like, you know, that's real life. People are going through those negative times, but I feel like that's what keeps a lot of people where they're at, because you don't want to be that Debbie Downer, but it is a reality. People are going through those dark moments, and sometimes you just simply sharing that with somebody can get them to say, hey, I'm feeling the exact same way. And you don't know how that's going to impact somebody else, you know?
Just like people do the weight loss journey, and you don't know because you're going to work out. That is impacting someone like, you know what, maybe I should go work out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? You just don't know. So social media there is a strong value regarding it, but sometimes if you're very sensitive thinking, and I think that's fair because a lot of us are very sensitive how we think, it could bring you down because you start comparing yourself to other people and their lives, and you're like, dang.
Why are they so happy?
My keyword is dang. I'm not there. Dang. You know what I mean? It is what it is.
Absolutely.
Nonetheless, Cyndi, I definitely appreciate you coming through. This is Day2Day Podcast. Cyndi, can someone reach out to you or hit you up or anything like that? You got an email that?
Yeah. Cyndi.melgoza with CYNDY. Period. Melgoza, MELGOZA at gmail.com. On social media as well.
Cyndi, thank you for coming out. I appreciate you. This is Day2Day Podcast. Peace out.
Why did I do that? What am I thinking? Why are they looking at me? What am I gonna do now? What am I doing? Where could I go? Why did I do that? What happened? What am I doing?
Life lived, they thinking me wrong. I can give up, but a nigga be wrong. Just lay back, hit a cig and feel me the song. Rod just left in June, just came home. Money ain't right, my bitch is the jealous type. Police on my bumper, I look like the felon type. My block is hotter than Arizona. Couple